Hey everyone, and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Becoming the Light from the Shadows of Abuse, the podcast that's designed to really just to inspire and to give courage to women who are dealing with the effects of past abuse or are currently stuck in an abuse situation. And we just hope that the guests we have on will really inspire you and move you to do something about either dealing with your past or the situation that you're currently in. So this morning's amazing guest is Tia Lynn. I'm going to let her tell you all about herself. She's from a business that has the name Sexybizbabe. So I can't wait to find out and hear more about that. She's basically a coach and a consultant. And obviously there's a lot more to it than that. And I'm going to hand over to her and let her tell you more about who she is and where she is in her life at the moment. So hi Tia.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for having me. I'm Tia Lynn. I'm a marketing and business coach and consultant. I usually help women build businesses that they're passionate about and they love, and how to market and sell their products and services. And I also have other businesses. I'm all about multiple streams of income. So I also help with credit, and I have a clothing line selling fun, ugly Christmas sweaters on the holidays, festival clothing, a bunch of things. And then I have other side hustles. So I'm all about doing the thing that you love and being multi-passionate. So I'm actually in Newport Beach, California, and this is one of my dream places to live. I'm running multiple businesses and really just showing up and doing what I love.
Wow. That's, yeah, and I mean, the passion, the passion and the excitement, it really, it shines through. And I love the fact that you're doing all these different things, because I think if what we're dealing with at the moment, for everyone listening, we're recording this at the time of the 2020 coronavirus. I think what it showed us is the need to have diversity and to not have all your eggs in one basket. So,
oh yeah, you guys, it helped me so much. Like when other things went down, you guys, I'm just saying, like my festival clothing line, it's slow right now because there's no festivals. I'm still getting some orders, but it's definitely slow. And so it's nice that I have other avenues to pick up that are doing better, to kind of help pick up the slack for that, like my flexibility classes, my dance classes online. And I'm just like so thankful for doing other avenues.
And I tell you what, it's great to hear as well. I think that if there are other women listening, well, there's bound to be, who are aspiring entrepreneurs or who are entrepreneurs and are thinking about adding something into what they already do, it's really great to hear this, because even for someone like me, people who don't think and operate in the same way that we do as entrepreneurs, you know, we're a very particular breed. We think in a peculiar way compared to everyone else is how people see us. And I certainly remember when I was looking to do different things, and people don't celebrate the fact that you are multi-focused, that you can juggle all these things, that you constantly have these ideas, not that you take action on them all, but that you have people just, they find it challenging or they find it wearing. And I very much had, well, what are you thinking of that for? You've already got X, you know? And I think it's so easy for us to think that there's something wrong with us, that we can't just focus on this one thing. You know, well, we don't have to. And we don't have to apologize for the fact that we don't do that. Because actually there's nothing wrong with being multi-talented, having several businesses, and people need to celebrate that. And to really embrace who they are, rather than being put off and put down by the people who don't understand it. So thank you. for bringing
We're
that up.
all multi-passionate beings. We all have different likes and dislikes. And what I've learned is that there's not just one purpose. You actually kind of go through many. And once you find one and you excel, you might find another, and you might find another, and it might lead you to this bigger dream. So that's where I used to get lost in the past, was finding my purpose. And finally, I was just like, it's my purpose right now. And then it led to the next, it led to the next, it led to next.
That's just so great to hear. And of course, that comes with our growth as well. Obviously, as we're working our way through life, developing our business, developing our skills, and for those who don't have businesses, just developing who we are as people, the next thing, the next layer gets revealed.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that was beautiful what you just said about that. You know, that it's my passion, it's where I'm at right now, but it doesn't mean it's where I will always be. You know,
Yep.
and that comes from having from embracing change, from not having that fear of change. That's just brilliant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it can, and as I say, it comes through in everything that you do. So that's who you are now. Very obviously complete and whole, and embracing everything that every opportunity that's being given to you. But I know that what you wanted to come on and talk to us about was a relationship that you had a few years ago. And what's very interesting about the way we're going to be talking about this today is that, unlike so many of our guests who are looking back over this extreme damage through their childhood that was relentless and ongoing, and where they were aware that they were experiencing abuse and not being loved and cherished and nurtured and all those things, that wasn't actually your experience. And we are going to look at that more later. But for you, I know that we've talked about it, and it kind of came out of nowhere for you. And I think it's so important for people to understand that this can happen. So do you want to,
I feel like this could happen to the best of us, to the strongest of us. Like I've always been a very outspoken, like, hear my boundaries. Like, people didn't really disrespect me. I was very bold. I never really was like passive. So yeah, it happened more like little chips breaking away at me until like it just happened. Like it was just little chips over time that led me to like physical abuse.
Okay, yeah. So obviously, it really did eat away at you and take away parts of you. So could you tell us more about this kind of start at the beginning, and tell us about this relationship, what it was in the beginning, and then what happened, what these chips were, and I guess it's almost like the frog in warm water. It just gradually gets to boiling and until it kills you.
Yeah. So this guy, we first met, he was really cute. He was obvious of his intentions to date me. It was like, whoa. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy isn't playing games. I wasn't used to that. It was really sweet. He took me out. He introduced me to his friends, his family. We moved pretty quickly. We had a lot of fun. We went on fun adventures, hiking, like concerts, all the things. Like, it was great. He was fully into me. He told me he didn't want to play games and that he wanted to date me. And I was like, whoa, this is whoa. That wasn't normal to me, and it kind of still isn't now. Yeah. So that's kind of how it started, and we had a lot of fun. And it was very slowly. I think it was once we were living together, because it developed pretty quickly. We started living together, I don't know if it was like, I think it was like 6 months into it. And it was slowly. He would start making sarcastic remarks about me. He would start putting down my feelings, like I'm too emotional. He would start like putting me down.
So,
Just little chips.
so I mean, obviously what you're describing here, it sounds absolutely wonderful, and you must have had a fantastic time. You know, everything's great, everything's perfect. You've got this guy, all he wants, he's really, really into you. So can you take us back? How did you feel it must have been a contrast, like almost the first time that he said something that you really noticed? How did you feel in that? What happened? What was that like?
I'm not I thought it was kind of normal for guys to say that you're too emotional. That was kind of a normal thing. That
Right.
I'm too emotional is kind of what I heard a lot. I do remember there was a shift in at a point in being like, I am too emotional. My emotions guide me, like I owned it. But I remember one of the first times it was more like the anger. It was the yelling, and like it was usually when he was drinking, and that was what was scary to me. Is like kind of like it happened a lot, but him like hitting walls or yelling, I can picture several times, so I don't know what came up first or when. Like it's all kind of a blur. I don't have like one significant time that like, oh, I remember this is the first time. I just remember it happened often, and he would like freak out and yell at me, and like I'm pretty loud, and so I'd either like, whoa, like calm down, or I don't know if I yelled back. I can't really remember completely, but it definitely made me feel like it brought up kind of past men in my life growing up. Like that was kind of a thing that happened, was like men yelling, kind of like triggered me.
Interesting. Yeah. So the men yelling seemed to be, it was something that you were familiar with, but not in a positive way.
Yeah, I definitely, stepdad, he yelled, and mom, yelled. So it was triggering, but I don't know if it was like completely like, whoa, this is crazy. It was just kind of like, okay, this sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, because I guess for you, what you recognize the feeling that goes with this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you will have had a past response to it and a past set of feelings that went with the yelling. You will have associated it with something,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it made you feel like it did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how long did all that take? And it was, I mean, obviously it's interesting that the first thing he did was tell you that you're too emotional.
Yeah, I remember that very vividly. He used to say it all the time. Like if I bring up feelings and I'm not very emotional. Like if you were to ask all my friends, I'm actually like pretty like level-headed, and I don't usually get too emotional. So then when he said that, that was actually new and different. I hadn't been hearing that for me personally. So I was just like, what? But he said it a lot. And
Yeah.
I was just like, my friends don't think I am. I've never had that. And I was just expressing my feelings.
Yeah, so it wasn't long before he had you actually trying to validate yourself, which
Mm-hmm.
of course we should never have to do, and also second guessing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But the fact
Yeah.
was he was the only one. So, and obviously he was what he chose was very clever. You're too emotional, because it actually undermines you to you.
Mm-hmm. And
It
that I'm
makes it
not
very,
supposed to have feelings or something.
yes. Or you're not supposed to express them. And if you
Yeah.
do, there's something wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then obviously he's building the foundation to justify everything that he does because you're too emotional.
Yeah. And over time, I realized like a lot of those times it's because the man or the person isn't in touch with their emotions, or they were told that they're too emotional or to not have feelings or to not feel or to not express their feelings. So, over my growth and progression and self-development, I've learned that. So he was also probably stuffing his feelings down. And so he was projecting that onto me. So I realized that.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, whatever it was, obviously there was something in there. There was something wrong because he was unbalanced in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Unable to, well, not unable to express himself in a healthy way, because it's almost like he knew it wasn't the way to be with you. He knew it wasn't the way to win your heart, because like you said, it didn't start until you were living together.
Okay. It's when he started getting insecure. I know that. Like, once he started getting insecure is when he started chipping at me. It's funny, like, what your biggest attraction or what people love you for is oftentimes what they hate you for. And so I'm very extroverted, I'm very fun, I'm bubbly, I talk to people, and that's what he loved about me. But that's also what he hated about me because it made him insecure. I was fun, I was bubbly when I'd go out, I talked to people, and I think it brought up insecurities about our relationship or him. And so he would like try and tear me down,
Yeah.
to make me feel bad or to hide myself. And yeah, ultimately it did lead me to not being myself. I remember there was a point that I stopped being as friendly, I stopped being as bubbly, I stopped being as like fun. And it literally started with just little chips all the time. Like sarcastic remarks, putting me down, and then him being sarcastic. Like, oh, I was just joking. That was
Yeah.
a very normal occurrence. I'm too emotional, and that he's just joking, but he would say mean things to me.
Yeah. So then he's invalidating you again. Because
Mm-hmm.
not only are you now too emotional, but you're giving too much energy, you're putting too much importance on something that he actually didn't mean. So you're
Mm-hmm.
taking it the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
So you're the one that's in the wrong.
Yeah,
And
I'm wrong for having my feelings hurt for him saying something rude.
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important. There's something very important that you said there about his insecurities. And for people listening, wondering about this kind of relationship, whether they're in one or have been in one, it's really, really important to understand that the only reason someone has to tear another person down is always from their own sense of insecurity. It always comes from their own place of lack. Because once we are really complete, whole, and grounded people, we can just let other people be themselves.
Yeah. Hurt
And
people hurt people.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we only try to diminish other people when we're threatened by them. And that's
Exactly.
something that is so important to bear in mind. Because when you're being put down in the way that you were, you really do take on and embody that it must be you.
Mm-hmm.
And that you had better change you because the current you isn't good enough in whatever way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's nothing to do with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
So I just put that in so that, because I hope it will help other people to maybe assess the situations they're in, to look at things that are being done and said, and to consider the the motivations of the other person, and to understand that if someone is undermining you, then they're coming from a place of, it's like we always say, don't we? So life can come from two places. It can come from fear, or it can come from love and abundance. And the need to diminish someone else comes from a place of fear. And when you understand that, you can see your situation differently. So tell us about how that progressed for you, who you became, how it affected you.
Trying to think back, like I remember a lot of the big explosive moments. I remember it got to a point where we'd like break up and fight and then get back together. And it was like, it was pretty often. And I remember thinking like, I never thought I'd be in this place. Like I remember thinking of my past friends, how they would like go back and forth in relationships. And I thought they were crazy. I was like, because I'd never done that before. I'd never gone back and forth and like break up, make up kind of thing. But with him, he'd always do something, punch walls, yell. I just, there's so many events in my mind just literally streaming in of like yelling, punching walls, throwing tantrums, and me reacting, like yelling back and like running away or we're done or something. And it just was like, it started to get pretty often. And it was really draining. It was just like, am I like psycho? Like I can't keep going back to this person. But he'd always just be like, I'm so sorry. I was just drinking. Or like it won't happen again, which is what they always say, is it won't happen again. I'm going to work on it. But the thing is as you keep going back, each level of abuse or whatever it is, if it's words, if it's physical abuse, it gets worse and worse and worse. Always. And I remember at one point he said he'd like never hit me or something like that. Definitely when he would drink, it would usually get worse. And it got to the point where, I guess I'll share kind of what happened is, I would know, like once he hit a point of drinking, I would know that things were going to start turning.
Right.
And so before it happened, I remember we were at a hockey game, and there was a point where he got a little too drunk, and I didn't want to be around him anymore because I knew things were going to start turning.
Okay.
I already knew. And so I remember being like, I'm not dealing with this. You're too drunk. And him being like, I'm not drunk. Stop saying I'm drunk. You don't know, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, I'm leaving. I left a hockey game suite, and I'm like, I'm leaving and I'm going with my friends. And we're going dancing. And like, at that point, I didn't have any negative intentions. I'm not going out trying to be promiscuous or anything. I was going out with two of my girlfriends to get my mind off of it. And I remember him like constantly messaging me like, where are you? What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm just dancing with my friends. He's like, when are you coming home? I think he even was like making some threats or something like, better not, or don't come. I don't know. It was, he was pretty drunk. But it got to the point where, he locked me out of my own house. I don't know if I should share this. Should I share what happened, or I don't know?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. If you want to, if it's of benefit to other people, because I think sometimes people think they're the only one going through these things, and they blame themselves, and then they feel guilty and they feel ashamed, and then they don't want to tell anyone.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can help to know that it's not you.
Yeah. I definitely felt very ashamed. Even just prefacing this is his sorry was including me. His sorry said if we didn't get too drunk and if we didn't do this, then it wouldn't have happened. He didn't take accountability. I still have it. I just took a picture of it, so it's somewhere in something. But yeah, so it got to the point where like I kind of knew what to expect, but I had to go home, and this was the first time I was locked out of my house. My friend's car keys were in there, and so we had to get in. My experience luckily kind of could have kept getting worse, but I'm thankful that I actually called the cops before I got into my house because I couldn't get into my house. So I was only calling the cops to try and get into my house to help me. Like, we needed to get in my house. My friends needed keys. Like, I had no place to sleep. Like, it was multiple people. We did a cheer stun into my bedroom, but pretty much I woke him up once we broke into my house, kind of like we got through a balcony, and he ended up choking me against a wall. And I just remember like not thinking that would have ever happened. And just like, falling to the ground and just being so like astonished, kind of.
That obviously took an awful lot out of you, because I know it was a while ago now, and it obviously still affects you that could have happened to you.
Oh yeah, I just never thought that would happen to me. And you guys, everybody, after it happens, you blame yourself. You're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that, and they blame you.
Of course.
And yeah, it's even his sorry put me into why it happened. Like, it wouldn't have happened if you didn't do this or I didn't do this. And I was just like, it wasn't even like a real apology.
And I think this will be so familiar to so many other people. And I'm really grateful to you for sharing this. To let women out there see themselves and hear themselves in what you have gone through, and to realize, hey, this is the same. Yeah, this is what happens to me. So I'm not going crazy. I'm not always to blame. It can't always be my fault. And to understand that what's happening is the other person isn't taking responsibility, no matter how obvious it is. That, and it's not that you don't wind them up, but winding someone up just means that as adults you have to look at your relationship and say, why is this happening? It's not an excuse for either mental or physical abuse.
And yeah, after that happened, I do remember afterwards feeling like worthless. Like, that's why it makes me tear up, is because you feel like worthless after that happens, and you are ashamed, and you don't want to tell people. I was like ashamed that it happened to me. I was ashamed that, yeah, you're definitely ashamed. And then telling some men, they would be like, what did you do?
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't want to tell people, because, especially men, because they would say that and like make it like it was my fault.
Yeah, and that's not to say that you didn't have a role to play. Like, as I just said, we all have a role to play, and we can be in relationships with people that aren't right for us. But that doesn't make it okay for that relationship to be abusive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did. I learned a lot from that relationship because I do believe there are mirrors in the people that you attract around you. And that was like a hard thing to face, is how did this happen and how can I improve, or what do I do that to add to the flame, I guess.
Yeah.
And so, I went through a lot of self-growth and like being like, okay, maybe it's like when they're yelling, I need to also be in control of my emotions and not also escalate. And how am I being abusive? It doesn't mean I was ever being physically or anything like that. But it's just, ways that I could grow. And it doesn't mean that I'm as bad or anything like that. But there's just, with all of your relationships and any abuse, there's always like ways to grow and learn from it. And I've grown a lot, and I know that, I've gotten to know myself a little bit more and how to manage people yelling or that instinct of men getting like, I learned that I got triggered with men. And so I learned that, that's like normal. Like I get triggered with men raising their voice or whatever. And so I had to realize that and be like, okay, I'm just getting triggered right now.
And that's what great learning is that. What you've just said there is again, it's gold to some people to understand your role, to understand what you are bringing to this, and for you to recognize these triggers around men shouting. That's so invaluable to you in everything in your life, because it has changed something about you that is showing up in every area of your life. And now you, as you say, you recognize it and you can do something about it and you can show up differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I started noticing, or the last guy I dated, he kind of pointed it out. He was very smart, and he told me that I would like get like triggered or like defensive with him sometimes, and like kind of like my tone would change, or I'd get reactive or condescending or something. And I was like, whoa. I was like, oh boy, I've probably been like this for quite some time. And it was a hard thing to look at. And then to be like, how can I change and grow from this? And like try not to maybe get so reactive. Just knowing helped me realize that still happens sometimes. But just knowing and being like, oh, am I just getting reactive, and starting to witness it?
Yeah, amazing insights there. That the important thing that we can do from all of these experiences is look at ourselves. I did want to go back and touch on something though, very interesting, and hopefully you don't mind if you can give some insight into this. It was when you were talking about this relationship and you said about how you kept going back. Obviously this was escalating, it was getting worse, and you kept going back. And I'm just wondering, can you remember at the time what you were thinking, or what you were hoping for with the going back? Where were you thinking it would go? What were you thinking would happen? What did you want or need from the going back?
Yeah, so I've talked to lots of friends about things like this, is sometimes you get to that point that you think that that's the person that you're supposed to be with, and this is your challenge. This is like, it doesn't get better than this.
Right.
Like, he's good in so many ways, and nothing's perfect, so this is what you have to deal with. Like a lot of people say, like, nothing's perfect, you can't have perfection. So I remember thinking like, oh, is this what I need to like grow from? Is this what I need to change? Because I knew that I was like also played a part. So I was like, do I just need to keep getting better?
Right.
Like, is this a challenge for me to get better? And so I just kept working on myself, and he would promise me that it'd never happen again, and he'd do steps to make it like not happen, or bring up therapy, which he never did, never once. And then he's like, they'd show, well, I remember very clearly, like they'd start showing like, oh, see, like things are improving. See this, look at this, things are improving, look at this. And so you're like, okay. And then you just keep thinking that it's going to get better. It's going to get better.
Right.
Each time.
Yeah.
There was a point in the relationship that I knew it was over for good. And I went back again. And it was more like he wouldn't stop, and we lived together. And even though I knew in my heart it was over, I knew that if I like just kind of let him realize it, it would help. So this was a different like situation, but it didn't hit him.
Sorry, so this didn't end with him choking you?
No, we got back together. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he went to jail that night because I already called the cops. So they showed up. You guys, this is a blessing. Like, it just happened that they showed up after the fact. Like, I'm not even joking, minutes, maybe even moments from it happening. Because I remember being on the floor, and you guys, my friends were there. So, like, and the cops showed up, and I was just bawling, being super, like, just shocked. And so he went to jail, and he got out. We lived together, so like, yeah, it just wasn't a clean break. Mm-hmm. We ended up, trying to give it a shot. I mean, I know at first I wasn't going to give it a shot, but we lived together. We were in separate bedrooms. But yeah, then I was like, okay, we'll work on it. But honestly, I knew it wasn't going to get better. And so I was detached, but it took him some time to realize that, yeah, I remember a point he was like, oh, you're not the same anymore, huh? He's like, you're not that happy person that I used to love. He's like, you're not happy, huh? And I was like, no.
But you hadn't been that person for a long time. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, I mean, I'd always have like ups. I mean, I'm a happy person, but yeah, he did notice that I wasn't like that spark in me as much, and like I was kind of depleted, and just like, yeah, I wasn't my happy, bubbly self that I usually was. He finally realized that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it got to the point where you couldn't give him what he needed anymore. He wasn't getting what he needed from you.
Yeah. So there was a point that we finally like gave that up. But yeah, it took time. It took, I don't know how long. I know at least, I think we lived together for like probably at least 2 months.
Right.
And then we had a dog, so we saw each other after. And it wasn't till like a few months after even him living away from me that I was like, I can't even see him. Like, I loved the dog. We raised the puppy together, and I had to cut it off completely because I could not see him anymore. He'd always push for more.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you were afraid that you would end up getting back with him, or you knew that really wasn't what you wanted?
Oh yeah, I didn't want that.
Yeah.
I really thought maybe I could see the dog, and I could take the dog for walks, and but once you love somebody and once you have passion, it is hard to like draw lines, and he always pushed it, and it just got to the point where I just couldn't even talk to him. I couldn't see him, I couldn't talk to him, I couldn't go see the puppy, I couldn't even just go pick up the puppy because I would have to talk to him. And like it just had that opening. So it took some time.
Yeah, it must have taken a lot out of you.
Yeah,
And
it really did.
And there's something very, very important that's come up here, which is why I particularly asked you about what you were expecting or hoping for every time you went back. And it brings me to the importance of so many people get caught up in people who say that they will change, and people saying that they will change is not enough. And that what you have to do is set a clear expectation about what does that change need to be, how are you expecting it to happen, when. Like if someone says, oh, I'm going to start to work with a mentor or a therapist or whatever they say they're going to do, okay, when
And
is this happening?
Don't take them back while they're growing with you, usually.
Oh, brilliant. Absolutely.
Is what I have to say. Yes. It's like, no, you see some change before you do it. Because he kept doing that. He kept saying, oh, I'll do it. But then we'd get back together, and then he's like, oh, like I'm growing, things are improving. And then he never did a therapist. He even got out of, I dropped charges. Like I dropped the charges on him because he said he'd do the therapy and he never did. Because I'm doing it on my own, blah, blah, blah. So then he got out of charges and everything, and he never did it. And there was no growth and there was no change. I'd always go back to it. And I've watched countless friends go through the same thing. It just gets worse. And you got to see the changes before you do anything. You got to see something. Separate yourself and stop going down this circular BS. Because I've watched so many of my friends go through this, and it just gets worse. Yeah. What abuse you put up with will always increase because they know they can get you back from that abuse. So why would they not? It always gets worse.
And that's just such really, really good advice there. That, yeah, sure, do the work, do the growth, but do it separate. He does his and you do yours. Because probably while you're doing yours, by the time you're doing yours, you're not going to want him back, especially not if he hasn't done his. Because you're going to be a different person, and what you will expect and want for yourself will be very different to what he can now provide.
Yeah, and you're like, you see just a little bit of growth or a little bit of change, which a lot of the time they're faking it or they're trying their hardest, but it's going to go back down that slippery slope. I've just watched it over and over and over. And it gets to a point where I've had friends almost die or get abused in front of their children, where they never thought that their husband would do it in front of their kids. I remember one of my friends, he will never do it in front of the kids. It got to that point, especially when there's drinking involved. Like, and they don't remember things. It always gets worse.
Thank you.
I've never watched one time it not get worse.
Yeah, so, because it's been allowed.
Yeah.
You've accepted it, and even if verbally you say this isn't okay, actually your actions say it is okay. Yeah. You got away with this, you know?
Even if it's subconscious, like they don't like consciously do it again maybe, but they subconsciously do. They know that they can get away with it. There's already this energetic boundary or lack thereof that they can get away with. So they already know. And especially if you go back quickly or they didn't really do much, oh goodness, they're gonna push it again. Yeah. So that's what happened to mine. It did continually get worse. All my friends got continually worse. Every single one.
Yeah. And this is the whole point, isn't it, about what he said to you in the beginning about you're too emotional. So then when you think that something is bad or that you should be paying attention to it, immediately you're second guessing yourself and saying, oh no, I'm just paying too much attention to that. It's because I'm too emotional.
Yeah.
It's not as bad
or
as I
that
think.
I'm too much, or I don't even know. He said lots of things, or, second guessing yourself, or if we didn't get drunk, then it wouldn't happen. It was partially my fault, or we should just stop drinking, or we should work on this. Even I'm telling you this. Like the apology said, if we didn't get drunk or we need to stop drinking and we need to stop yelling, then it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, and that's thank you for bringing attention to that, because again, I'm sure there are other people that are hearing that and maybe not even realizing that they are being brought into the apology.
Yeah, like it was my fault.
Yeah, I was just about to say the significance of the we is you're not dealing with a person who is taking responsibility.
Yeah, I still don't even think he thinks it was that wrong. Like, I just don't. He never really made me feel like he was fully, or he couldn't even like come to, he finally did, and it really hurt him, but it's almost hard for them to like realize how bad they hurt you or like take responsibility. Yeah. So it was easier for him to blame both of us.
Yeah, there's a theme right through this, isn't there, of him not taking responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my friends, they keep going back because they want to improve, or they've already spent so much time with them, or they have kids together. A lot of them was because they have kids. They'll never do it in front of the kids, and they gotta be in this because of the kids. But you guys, you gotta get out of it because of the kids.
Oh,
like as we talked earlier, as a child, I witnessed abuse, but I was a baby, you guys. I don't remember it, but I've gone through some like therapy and stuff, and it does play a part. Like whether or not the kids know, the energy is there, the negativity is there, the yelling is there, and then the kids get used to it, and they think that that's normal. And just like I thought it was maybe kind of a little normal to have fighting and yelling. So whether or not they know or it's hidden, they know.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because when you said about your friends saying, oh, they've got to be in this for the kids, I was going to put this in a way that not many people think about it. And children they're very malleable, and they soak up information like a sponge. And they're constantly watching the adults in their lives with these subconscious questions. Like, who am I? What's my place in the world? What's my role? So boys are watching their dad to find out what is a man.
Mm-hmm.
And they're learning from their dad, this is how you treat a woman.
Mm-hmm.
This is your role in a relationship. Mm-hmm. And they're also watching their mother and seeing that it's okay. Oh yeah, that is how you treat someone, because hey, look, that's what happens. And then girls are watching in the same way. They're watching their mothers and learning how to become a woman. What a woman should and could expect from a man. What's acceptable. Mm-hmm. This is what children are learning.
Yep, so true.
And even if people might say, oh, well, we don't do it in front of the kids. They don't hear us. They don't see us. But what they don't see, so, I mean, number one, it's not possible. I doubt it's possible to do it in a way that the kids don't see or notice. Mm-hmm. But then, absolutely what they don't see and notice, they don't notice love, affection, fun, laughter.
Yeah.
So whether they see it or not, all of those things are missing.
Yeah.
So then they don't expect those things in a relationship.
Yeah, so
they don't
true.
Know what it is to see joy and affection and giving and conversation and just this easy flow of just being that a loving, healthy relationship is. They are not getting that as their message.
Yeah, I love that so much. It's so true.
So people who think we need to stay for the kids, Tia, you hit it on the head when you said, actually, you need to not stay for the kids.
Yeah. It's the energy, it's the love, it's so many reasons.
What is being modeled to them? because they are picking up all of it. And let me tell you, here's the thing that a lot of people don't know, but obviously I work with the subconscious mind. I'm very aware of how the mind works. And especially with children, anything negative that happens around them, they think is their fault.
Yep, that's so true. Mm-hmm. Yep.
That it must be down to them, that they're not good enough, that they're somehow not lovable enough, that they're somehow not doing something well enough. Believe me, children absorb everything and blame themselves for everything inwardly. And as parents who chose to have them, we have such a responsibility to realize that our children are vulnerable and that they are powerless and that they are looking to us for all of their clues about who they are and what a relationship is.
Yep. And I'm going to tell you this, my mom, she got divorced a year into it. You guys, I don't have a bad dad or anything, but I was raised by a single mom, and I turned out pretty damn great. So I witnessed a lot of love, and I'm very thankful I didn't grow up in that relationship because they were not meant to be together. And my dad's grown a lot over the years, and he's a great dad now to his other kids and stuff, which is good, but they were not good together. And I'm so thankful that my mom broke that apart when I was younger, because it would not have been good.
And that's a great realization. So, all right, so let's leave that relationship. Mm-hmm. Everything you've shared, so valuable. So what did you do? You left the relationship. You were obviously a complete emotional wreck by then, a shadow of the person you have been. So what did you do? How did you work your way through to where you are now and what you're doing now? Exactly what did you build for yourself and how did you do it? Because that's the journey. That's the key. Where are you coming from?
So, and I don't have too much longer. I just wanted to tell you. So
that's okay.
Okay. So, how did I pick myself up? I knew it wasn't my fault. I talked to my mom. She's been in an abusive relationship. She helped me with that. I separated myself. I remember we had some space. I made sure to take care of myself, to also be okay with the pain. And I did talk to my friends, which it was hard to share, but I know that I have a good group of friends, so sharing helped me, and talking about it and telling my friends and family and having a support system. And not too long after that, you guys, it wasn't too long. It was just, I'm pretty sure it was just a few months after. You guys, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how long, but within the next, under a year, I moved to California. So I'm not sure the exact time frame, but I remember I just started changing. The next person I dated was actually pretty healthy. I really liked him, and I grew a lot. I built myself up. I've done a lot of self-development. I built multiple businesses. I moved to California. So I just changed my life. There was a point I was like, I no longer want to be in Utah anymore. I'm sick of this. I don't have a boyfriend. I'm not happy with my life. I'm not happy with my job. I need to make a big change before I get stuck here again. So I just made a lot of big changes.
And that's amazing that you were able to do that, and that you had that strength within you.
Mm-hmm. I'm not saying I cried for a long time, and I was single. I dated that guy kind of recently after, but then after that, I was single for 3 years. So it was a lot of personal growth and help, and you know, I kind of sabotaged the relationship right after that. And it was, you know, I probably wasn't ready back then. So,
Yeah.
and the last person I dated, I learned a lot. And now I'm actually to a point where I'm really open for love and open for finding a man that I want to be with and open to partnership. And I've never been in the place that I am now. I couldn't even admit that I wanted to be married in the past. So yeah, I'm very open for love and open to connect, and I've grown so much. So there's definitely a lot of growth that comes from challenges and abuse.
Yeah, and I think it's important what you said about that you had those 3 years by yourself, but obviously you didn't waste them. Like, you know, you're not sitting there saying, oh, it's 3 years and moping around because I was so sad and depressed and unhappy. No, you spent 3 years on your development and on your growth.
Oh, yeah. Relationship development, business development, personal growth, therapy, helped with my abandonment issues. I didn't have time for her, man. I was really focusing on myself. And now I'm actually finally to a point where I'm just like, I'm open for love. Like, I'm not looking, but I'm open to it.
Yeah, and I think the exciting thing about that openness and the way you talked about partnership and teamwork, that's obviously a big shift for you from where you were before. But you know, I guess that being open to love, do you feel that that comes from where you've got to because you are now whole and complete within yourself, that you can totally trust yourself to do the right thing now moving forward in a relationship, and that allows you to be open for the right thing to come in?
Oh yeah, you guys. I've went through lots of therapy this past year, lots of personal growth, different types of therapy, like the one you've mentioned, RTT, like a lot of different things. A lot of like crying, a lot of growth, a lot of like looking back on why I am this way, steps to grow and change, communication. I just finished reading this book called Attachment, and dude, like, oh my gosh. It wasn't until I'm okay with being alone and not looking for that love and not looking for someone else to make me feel complete. Like this last relationship, I was looking and I was needing that love and I was giving so much in this last relationship that I had. And then I just didn't feel like I was worthy enough because I kept trying to prove myself and prove that I was worthy enough, probably because of all the past crap. But finally, I'm not even joking, in the last few months, I'm finally like, you know what? I'm whole and I'm not going to keep trying to prove myself that I'm worthy and prove that I'm good enough and prove that I'm worthy of this relationship. I just am. And I've worked on making myself happy, making myself feel loved. When I start feeling needy, I'm like, what do I need? Give it to myself. I still even get that. Sometimes you have that, I'm anxious attachment style. So it talks about that in that book, but I get a little bit I need that love. I need that reassurance. I need that cuddle. I need that kiss, that affection. And I'm like, or what can I give myself right now? And so I'll kind of mentally hug myself or love myself or give myself love and be like, no, I'm safe because of me, and I'm whole and I'm worthy of love because of me. And it's been a lot of change. It's been a lot of personal growth to get me here.
Yeah, and the change is learning to love yourself.
Yeah.
Because you are the absolute epitome of a demonstration of the fact that the most important relationship you have is the one you have with yourself.
Yeah, and it always seems so easy, oh yeah, I do love myself. Well,
yeah,
it's harder than we think. We wouldn't be looking for outside gratification.
Yeah, no one says that it's easy, but it's not easy because it should be easy, but because early on we're taught not to. we have so many things that teach us negative things about ourselves and give ourselves all these reasons why we shouldn't love ourselves and why we're not worthy and why we're not good enough. So then it's hard to turn that around. But the difference when you do, you're coming from a completely different place and space. And what you're demonstrating is that is then obvious and spills over into every area of your life.
Yeah. And once you love yourself, you fully do, you won't put up with abuse. You won't.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You just won't. As soon as you see it or you hear it, you're out of there. You're gone. You know that you are enough and you are worthy, that you just leave, or you don't put up with it. You don't make excuses. You're just like, nope, I am enough and this isn't okay. And that's it. Once you are demonstrating that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the thing about the energy that you give out is different, so you don't attract it anyway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it gets better and better.
Yeah.
Once you get out of an abusive relationship, it gets better.
Because anyone looking for that instinctively knows, just from the way you come across and the self-confidence you have, and this relationship with yourself, they just know that you are solid and that you are not going to accept the crap that they want to bring into this. So so lots of stuff there. So thank you. Do you have any kind of closing words, any closing advice for people? Aside the stuff about the kids was amazing. Really, I hope that lands with people. But,
I do too. That's one of my biggest things is I've watched multiple friends go down that slippery slope and keep saying that excuse over and over, to the point where they've almost they literally could have died, and they never thought that could happen, and that their kids have seen it, and they never thought that used to be their excuse. So yes, that I hope drives that home for people, and just that if you don't heal and you don't make some growth and heal from past wounds, you will continue to repeat it. And so, it's hard to change on your own. You can't see the big picture when you're inside the frame. And I did seek lots of help, and I didn't see what I was doing wrong. I didn't know my communication was off, or the way I was acting was not the best. So it's so important to seek help and have a second set of eyes to let you know that, what, this is how you can improve. This is what, it's so hard to do it on your own. Support is huge. And your friends and family are not the ones that help you change and grow as much as professional support.
No, because their motivation is different, and because they see you differently, and your support outside of yourself is there for a reason. It's their job to support you, but it's also their job to call you out on everything.
Yeah.
Out, which your family and friends won't want to do, not in that way. Nope.
They won't.
It's what you need. It's tough love. Sometimes as therapists, we have to do really tough love with our clients, but it only comes from a place of love and wanting the best for them. And our job is to call them out in a way that no one else can.
Yep.
So
you're trained in this.
So thank you. So if people really, we'll put all your links in anyway. But if people really resonate with you and feel that they want some help and that you're the person to help them, because they feel connected to you, or they can really relate to things that you've said and your style, what exactly do you do for people, and how can they contact you?
So check out my podcast, find me on Instagram. I hang out there a lot. Sexybizbabe. It's easy, it's fun, and I help women own their confidence, own their sexy confidence and their power and their skill set and their expertise, and I help them make money doing what they love. Like, I like to help passionate women in business, whatever that is. I do help a lot of coaches, but it could be a clothing line, it could be a business. I've helped several different types of businesses as well. But a key ingredient I do really like in my coaching is that they love it, and I help them own their value, own their worth, and really get attraction based marketing. And in sales, you got to have those. You got to have your confidence, good sell skills, and high worth. So I help with all of those, and great marketing. Being yourself.
Wonderful. Thank you. And really, what a testament you are, just really embodying there what this podcast is all about. And you yourself becoming the light from the shadows of abuse, and now showing other people how to do the same. So,
yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience and everything that it was. And I'm sure that there are people who will relate to it in a very particular way.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to like DM me, screenshot and share this podcast, DM me. Maybe you relate to me. I like to respond to my DMs and Instagram, and I love connecting with other women.
So that was today's episode with Tia Lynn, and yeah, just to thank her. And I just appreciate so much the amazing guests that we have on, and how open they are to sharing their stories, and how valuable it is. All of these stories are different, and we see threads and we see similarities, but all of them teach us something else. And I made a few notes about some of the stuff that I spoke about with Tia there. And I think it's really important to notice from this that trauma isn't defined. And trauma is really just something that happens, it's happening outside of you, but the effect of it happens inside. And it affects you to the degree that it changes who you would have been if that hadn't happened, if that thing that's going on outside of you hadn't happened. And it's very easy for us to look at people who have the traditional abuse situations as children, where they know that there was abuse going on, that it was either physical or emotional or sexual, and that it was extreme, that they were aware of it. As adults, they've been aware of it. But what was very interesting about this one was that clearly as we went through, and I've made a few notes, more and more was revealed that there was some abuse going on in the background, but it was more kind of low level, and Tia was very, very unaware of the way that it was affecting her, to the degree that in the beginning what she described it as, well, I didn't really have any abuse. This came out of nowhere for me. So we're not talking about abuse in that way, but we're just talking about things that she was aware of. And this links to our conversation at the end when we were talking about the children, and she herself, she's a product of that. If you look at what she was saying, number one, she talked about having abandonment issues, which obviously she wasn't aware of. But abandonment is something that you bring into every relationship you have, because it makes you needy. It means that you will do things that are not you, and that you will accept things that you don't want, or that are crossing your boundaries because of your fear that this person will leave you. And that's clearly what she had in her background. But then she became very aware as she did the work, as we call it. We're always saying, you need to do the work, the personal work on yourself. And what it allowed her to see was that while she hadn't seen it as abuse in her background, clearly what was going on was there was some kind of programming there. And she was used to this yelling this yelling was coming from somewhere, this reaction she had to the yelling. And not only did it give her did she have a negative reaction, it was a trigger for her, but it had also obviously contributed to this underlying sense of what she was worth and of her own value. So on the surface, she was great and everything looked fine, like she said, but underneath she had this there was this sense, very definitely, because when people are constantly yelling at us, or there is yelling around us, it affects our sense of self-worth. Because as children, as I explained, and Tia agreed, children take on everything and assume it's their fault. So, I mean, we didn't go into the details, and we never assume about what someone's thinking and feeling in a situation. But she definitely had her reaction to the yelling. It was definitely a trigger for her, and there's a reason why. And she will have brought that into everything in her adult life, which is why recognizing these things and doing the work is always so important. But let's have a look in that relationship. And the really important thing is that, number one, it was little chips, things that chipped away at her. So she didn't even realize what was happening until it had happened almost. But let's have a look at what happened, where she was immediately set up to not really question this, to not give it the attention that it should have been given, because she was led to believe that she was too emotional. And when he kept saying this to her, she starts to believe it. So then when she's thinking that things are a problem, or that maybe this deserves more attention, or this isn't acceptable, or she doesn't want this, she's then second guessing herself. I said, well, am I just too emotional? Am I just expecting too much? She said later on, you can't have perfection. No, you can't have perfection, but there's a big gap between perfection and abuse, whether it's emotional or physical. You can have the in-between. None of us are ever going to have perfection. And I don't think we want it either, but as I say, there's a big gap between those two. But what they're putting down and saying, oh, you're too emotional, is it kind of bridges the gap between those two. And it caused her, and it would cause anyone, to question the validity of what they're thinking and feeling. And that's actually what happened. It made her feelings and her opinion invalid. And I wanted to bring that up because it's so common. It's such a way of diminishing, it's a common way of diminishing and controlling someone. And I want people out there to be aware of this. Yeah, and then as she moved on, when the relationship finished, and she was aware of feeling ashamed and of feeling worthless. And this is so common. So many people that get caught up in abuse situations, afterwards they take on the shame and the guilt. And it can make it difficult to resolve it when you don't talk to people about it, when you keep it all in and you don't truly reveal what happened. Because one of the things we know about healing from this type of abuse is that supportive and nurturing relationships play a key role. And really that shame, that doesn't belong with you. She went over the reasons why she stayed. And the reason I asked that question is because it's pretty much why everyone stayed, and everyone stays. And I wanted to make that point about how we get caught up. We call it chasing an illusion. You have an illusion of it's either a reference to how it used to be, or the illusion to how you want things to be. And there's always that promise. There's that promise of change. And the important thing is that, yes, by all means, I'm not saying, like, we know people can change, but you can't just blindly accept, I will change. It has to have some boundaries around it. It has to have some structure, some expectation. You don't just go back into the relationship going, oh, it will change, he will change. How is this going to happen? What is your requirement for this? When is it going to happen? What are the results that you need to see? What does this need to be for you? You know, and obviously he'll have his requirements around that too. But do not ever just go back in on the basis that it will change. Make sure you have a focus on those changes and bringing them about. And be aware when that doesn't happen. If that doesn't happen, why isn't it happening? And then do something about it, because that's showing you a pattern. Okay, so I think that's really, really important. And also what Tia said, you don't need to be together to do that growth. I mean, I got brought back by Corona 7 weeks into what was going to be a 5-month stay away. And that was me giving both my husband and I some time and space to work on ourselves. Yeah, sure, I was kind of doing this thing where I was traveling and working because all of my work's online and I could do that, and I had this trip planned. But this was definitely a time where our expectation was that we were both working on ourselves. And that then when we got back together, we would see, you know, when I was due back in June, and I left at the beginning of February. That's right. So, you know, what was this going to be? That was our work that we were doing separately. And there wasn't an expectation. The expectation was that we were doing this work for ourselves, but we didn't have a definite, oh yes, so when we meet up then in June, everything will be great and we'll be able to get back together and pick up where we left off. That wasn't what it was about. It was about, okay, we'll give ourselves this space and time, we'll do some personal work on ourselves, and then in June, well, we'll see where we're at. Who have we become? What do we want for our future? What can we be for each other? And that's what that time was. So I've been through this myself, and it's very valid. And there's a lot of sense and wisdom in doing the work apart, if you can. You know, if you can, definitely. But very much taking on board there what Tia said, what we were talking about with the children. So many people say this. Yeah, this is vital that they stay together for the children. And I hope that you will think about what we said about, even if the children aren't seeing and hearing what's going on in a negative and abusive way, and I doubt for most people that's just not possible, they are not seeing then the healthy side. They are not seeing the love, the joy, the abundance, the comfortable, easy flow, the giving and receiving of affection and conversation and support and love. They have no reference for that. So they are not learning that that is what a healthy relationship includes. That's what a healthy relationship looks like. So anyway, as always, I hope that today's episode has really helped you, spoken to you, that you have learned from it. And most of all, that if you need to take action in any way at all, that you do, that it helps you to think about that. And if you need any help with that at all, if you're really connected with Tia, her details are here. And of course, mine are always here if you need me to help and support you through anything, even if you need that free 30-minute call that I do to help you make sense of a situation that you're currently in. So, okay, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Please share these podcasts. Please share this channel with anyone that you think might benefit from the stories that we share. And I'll catch you on the next episode. Bye then. Thanks.